Salam and welcome back, everybody, to our podcast, Unapologetic, the Third Narrative.
Our original and authentic initiative in light of the war in Israel and Gaza.
A platform where we will share our identities, views, and experience from the ground.
Mira, it's been too long since we had our last recording.
Yeah, we need to make it more regularly, to be honest.
We're going to be working on that, obviously, and I think our listeners will be, seeing more episodes coming up soon. And today we're actually not alone.
No, we're not.
We are joined by, I hope our audience have they need to take a breath, and because there's a lot of energy coming into this discussion with one of the most energetic people I've ever met in my life. And I lived in 3 countries, I can say that. And I met people from like 130 countries. I've never seen anything like this. You are a star,
drum
my friend.
roll.
Drum roll. A very dear friend and a close friend and a colleague at work as well, Ashager.
Hello.
Welcome, Ashager. She is, by the way, for anyone who's listening and hasn't seen the video, this is our white colonialist Jewish person coming in.
We wanted to introduce you as Rachel. We did talk about this.
Yeah, I know. I look like a Rachel. This is the first image you have when you look at me.
So, Ashager, because, not everybody has the video, we would love if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and why we're actually saying this.
First of all, you should see the video because I'm gorgeous. I'm kidding.
She is. Go to our YouTube.
This is why you should go to their YouTube. So my name is Ashager, as been told. I'm Ethiopian Jew. I'm proud to be Ethiopian Jews because it's the best community in the Jewish community. And generally in Israel, just saying like...
We'll hold our egos a little bit just because you're a guest.
She's our guest. We can't say anything.
I am right. I have I dedicated a lot of my life to tell the story of Ethiopian Jewry, understanding that education is the road for connection. I truly believe that the most important thing in order to create connection between people who are different from each other, who have different stories or different ethnicity, is about knowing each other's stories. So in the last 4 to 5 years, I've been investing my life on telling the story of Ethiopian Jewry and open a center that is my goal, to educate people about who we are, what we are, and our legacy and peoplehood as Ethiopian Jews.
So what's the center called and where is it located?
The center is called Battae. Battae, it's in Amharic. Amharic is the official language of the Ethiopian people, and it means my house. The center was created by my aunt, who's my partner, and myself, under this idea that we are, both of us are living in a very proud Ethiopian household. And we wanted to create that, this atmosphere when you get to someone's house and you get to eat their food and listen to their stories and listen. Exactly. So that's what you get when you come in, you hear the music, you get food, you listen to our stories, you have argument, like a real family. So that's why we call it Battae. Everything in the center is made by Ethiopian artists, from the table to the art of the wall, because one of our things for the community, by the community. Not only is the slogan is something that we actively doing every single day. Artists will give us the art, we will sell to different groups, and then they will get paid. So we are getting revenue for other young artists to be able to live out of their art, which is something that we are very, very proud of.
And I think one of the most beautiful things that we can already start, even now, seeing, is the connection between the languages. That Battae is also in Arabic, my home. And even in this tiny little 5-minute intro, we already can see, cross-cultural things
that sounds familiar.
that connects us together, even though we come from completely different cultures. But these connections
Mine
are
is
beautiful.
better. Yes.
Let's we open for dialogue, not debate. But
Still.
speaking of languages, our latest or the latest popping trend on social media was the posters and protests that were done by the brave civilians of Gaza against the war, against Hamas, and against the brutality that they are seeing, and their displacement mostly, and they're losing their families. And Ibrahim, you explained it beautifully on our Instagram page what they meant. Do you want to
Yeah,
take the
they
floor?
are. Yeah. So, if you haven't seen the reel, there was a whole argument there was a poster in the protest a couple of days ago, and there was a sign says yes to releasing the prisoners. And a lot of people started arguing here and in the world. No, maybe they didn't mean the Israelis. No, they're talking about Palestinian prisoners in Israel. They're not actually against the war. But when you read it in Arabic, it actually means
The word taslim.
taslim is to give to the other side, not to bring back to your side. So they were talking about the Israeli hostages. Other arguments are, it's a small protest. We actually, a day later, we saw another one and even a bigger one. So, we hope that a change can actually happen also from the inside, that the Gazan people can actually also, push for a change there as well. And
it's absolutely admirable, I have to say, the resilience, the love of life of these people. Wow! After everything that they saw,
people sometimes ask whether or not Gazans would say, or why don't they say? And there's that fear because everyone who speaks out, you can be targeted by Hamas. They can target you personally. They can target your family members. So once those people actually do it, let's not undermine that they did it, because thank God they did it. Let's not question them and try to put those obstacles in their way.
No,
let's help them and strengthen them and support them, because these people are desperate to live. And let's not put them as all of these people in one box that just want to kill Israelis and there are no innocent civilians. That rhetoric that's one thing to show that this rhetoric cannot continue.
What do you think?
What do you think, Ashager, about it?
I think it's very complicated because, first of all, I'm very happy, obviously, to see those images, his videos, especially when I understand the courage it takes. There is different to see a protest here about civilian life in Gaza when you know that those protests, maybe society as a whole in Israel doesn't agree with them, but in the end of the day, those protests are being protected by the police. They have their own, they have a permission, and if something happen to them, there's going to be consequences. Maybe they are not hated quote unquote socially in that atmosphere of Israeli society that are very want to solve the situation right now in Gaza, but at least they are able to do that very freely, very openly, defiance of everything. But there's no risk for their safety. When Gazan go out and protest, they're 100% putting their own freedom or own safety, their own their family, not on themselves, on the line. Which is I think that is something that Israeli society needs to see. I would argue again and again, in the end of the day, I think after October 7, a lot of atmosphere have changed in the Israeli society. If someone who's left-leaning, liberal, I would and my circles come from the same thing. A lot of people have the bar, maybe it's not fair, but the bar of sympathy of what we needed to hear or what we need to see have risen. Maybe it's not fair. Maybe it comes from trauma. Maybe it comes from what we have seen happen to us, or the fact that the voice of the opposition is so much louder. So it's very easy for us to look at, majority of them, or the majority of them act like that, or majority of them think like that. But saying this a little bit of I would say tipot,
grains of
in the water could be something that's very important in order to open the idea of change, of the idea of hope. Because in the end of the day, I truly believe in both sides. There is everyone want to live, everyone want to be able to raise their children, have a dignified life. And that's what Israeli wants. And I hope this idea of freedom and self-expression and actually choosing or understanding that our life is meant to be living and not it's not a sacrifice for someone else, which is something that's very hard for me, that when you think about the Western world and how they view Palestinians, or the toll they are willing to give to Palestinians, it's very hard. because like they deserve to be living. They deserve to have their own life. They deserve to make their own decision. And for a long time, they weren't able to do so.
So that was fascinating, the what you just
Yeah,
said.
I
I
know.
have so many questions, but I've stopped myself because I want you also to tell your story, because your story is so fascinating.
And I think it's important to
Yeah.
start with it. Our audience, not all of it, is even aware of, the culture. Where does the Ethiopian community come from? Well, Ethiopia, but, beyond that, some people don't even know that there are Ethiopian Jews. So we would love for you to share your beautiful story with us.
So Ethiopian Jewry is one of the most unique communities, as you all know. If you're not, you should be ashamed of yourself. In the Jewish community, because when you talk about Jewish identity, there's a lot of like the Jewish like experience in different countries around the world, from Yemen to Morocco to Iraq, Iran, or random countries in Europe. But what is different is like no matter where Jews were, they had a sense of like community, the sense of identity, like we are part of this like big peoplehood. That is what a lot of Jewish communities felt throughout the world. But that was not the experience of Ethiopian Jewry. Ethiopian Jewry for centuries believed they are the last Jewish community in the world. There is different identity of how we became, but the main one we'll talk about is we are the descendants of the tribe of Dan, which is like an ancient tribe, one of the 12 tribes. And we believe that after like the collapsing of the first temple, we went to Egypt and then Kush, which is the
modern day Ethiopia, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the difference is that we lived our life in Ethiopia thinking we were the last Jewish people in the world.
If your community didn't survive, Judaism would be over.
Yeah, exactly. And what is interesting, that idea or that perspective were stricken down from one generation to another. This idea of Judaism above all, above racial identity, about everything, is something that even like the young generation today is affected by. That we have this idea of like, we are like, this is our responsibility to keep Jewish identity alive. And knowing our story, that my ancestors, my grandparents, my great-grandparents have always fought for their Jewish identity in a country like a lot of other countries in the world. It wasn't simple to be Jewish. There were laws that discriminate against you because you were Jewish. So they had to fight for the Jewish identity.
And what was the attempt there in Ethiopia? Because it's a Christian country, right? So
Yeah.
what was the, what did they try to do? Conversion, or what was the Christian state's attempt at that time?
So Ethiopia is the second country worldwide to accept Christianity as its main religion. And Ethiopia is a very diverse country. Generally speaking, they have different languages, different communities living there. But once in the 4th century, they decide everyone need to be Christian. There was laws in order to make sure that everyone is going to be Christian, meaning there was active effort from the kingdom, the Solomonic kingdom at that time, to convert Jewish people to Christianity. Some community gave up very easily, but if you think about it, when they come to our community, we call it Jewish community, but you have to understand Jewish community, the word Jewish did not exist in Ethiopia. It's called Battae Israel. The house of Israel. The idea of Judaism came later on, very modern experience. Before that, if you ask my parents or my grandparents or my grandparents, that is how they were called. If my
first temple,
exactly,
they were the people of Israel back then.
Exactly, I'm Israelites. That my grandma would say I'm Israelites. That the idea of the Jewish, it's a modern day. Our parents or grandparents have defined themselves as Battae Israel, the house of Israel. That is the connection, because that is what they pray for. That's where they wanted to return. That is where the origin story started from. And when someone comes to you and tell you need to convert, when you know you are the last one of your people, what would you say?
You'll do anything in your power to maintain your culture, your identity.
Exactly, because this is your responsibility in that
lifeline.
Said
no? What happened?
From that point, there was very intricate history of wars and fighting, of discrimination, of
roughly
violence.
What years are we talking about?
We're talking what is interesting or very sad about the history of Jewish Ethiopian Jews, like a lot of history of Middle Eastern Jews, there is a region of history, this deleting of history. If you talk to a regular, like I'm putting in a
Quote
quote,
unquote.
Why we don't have Ethiopian Jews here? If you ask them, they will tell, hey, they decided to leave. It's the same way you ask Iranian Jews or Iraqi or Moroccan Jews why you don't have Jews, or the Jews that are living is so small. They will say, hey, they chose to leave.
It's like what we said once, that history is written by the victor.
Yep.
Exactly. So that is why the story of Ethiopian Jewry is very hard to, like, when you talk about years.
Find
exactly.
details.
And so there is like this like structure of, we know this time was relatively easy. If you hide your Jewish identity, you will be fine. But in that time, under this king, he was very determined to kill all Jews or convert them. So that time they were hiding in the mountains and they could not be interacted in different societies. So in every time in history, depend of the leader at that time, that is how Jews were treated. Like your idea of your experience always was under the benefit of the leader, how they treat you. And majority of the time, you were treated like a second-class citizen. Majority of time, your identity was not accepted in a general, like, as a part of your society.
And we're talking, it started in the 4th century, as you said. So it's all the way from the 4th century to the 20th century.
To the 19th century.
20th century.
Yeah, exactly. So
and
you have
what
like...
happened then?
And how
after
how
15, 16 years of living, in the discrimination, and then something happened and everything changed for the community.
So in the middle of the 18th century, there's a change in the Jewish community in Ethiopia when they realize there is other Jewish people around the world. Like, this is the first time they realize they're not by themselves. There is investigation, Yaakov Faitalovich, which is a Middle Eastern and researcher, very big. He was the first one to reconnect the Ethiopian Jewish community to the global Jewish community. And what that idea opened up the story of maybe we're not alone. There is more Jewish communities out there. And that is where actually my family story starts, because now you're not by yourself. There's more Jewish communities. And later on, the story changed. And the story says not only there is more Jewish communities out there, there is this Jewish state. And this Jewish state, not only a Jewish state, is in this place you've been praying for your entire life. Because what do you have to understand about this community? There's different villages, there's different people, there is one thing. One thing is Jerusalem. No matter where you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what, it doesn't matter. The word Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, always exists for us, because 3 times a day we'll pray for next year in Jerusalem. Exactly. That's it. That's what we grew up on. When you talk to my grandma, she said, that's I burst in tears when I saw Jerusalem the first time.
Wow.
Because that is the thing that she prayed for from the moment she was born. And then the story says, if you walk from Ethiopia to Sudan, a random country, if you think about it, a month and a half, 2 months of a journey, this imaginary country, and you have to understand, for them it's imaginary country. They didn't have photos.
Proof. Yeah.
They didn't have anything, just a rumor. I heard it from my neighbor, they heard it from my friend, they heard it whatever. They didn't have anything concrete to know there is this thing that called Israel. But they told them, if you walk for a month and a half, this imaginary country you keep hearing about is going to come and take you to Jerusalem. Now, I think none of us will believe that. And none of us will leave our house.
What do you think, audience? Would you pick up your stuff and go to an imaginary country
just
that
your
people...
stuff, you and your family.
Your family, everything. You leave everything behind. Even when I learn about the stories, I always ask myself, would I do that? Would I be that brave that I will be able to leave everything, my house, my clothes, everything behind, and start this journey under this dream of a thing that I don't have any proof that exists? And they did that. That is my community. They did that. They walked for a month and a half to 2 months in the desert in order to get to
You're
Sudan.
not making it dramatic enough. They walked. They walked. For how long?
For a month and a half to 2 months. And we're talking about women, children, elderly. You have over 10,000 people who actually started the journey. Over 4,000 people have perished in this journey.
Didn't make it. Wow.
Like 4,000 people. You have to understand the statistic in our community says that every family that started this journey has a casualty.
Wow.
Every single family that started this journey have a loved one they were forced to bury in the desert. And that is something that is unimaginable. My grandma even have like a more unimaginable story because my grandma started this journey. This Operation Solomon happened in 1984 to 1985. She started the journey like in the end of the operation. In the end of the operation, they didn't know what is going on. She started that, and my grandma she walked for almost 2 months in the desert between Ethiopia to Sudan. She had a young boy who did not survive, and she had to bury him. We didn't know about it until later on, because a lot of our communities about everything is okay now. You're not talking about the past.
They don't want to talk about the tough stories.
There's a lot of like, it took her for a long time to tell us that we had lost someone. And at that time, that was a covert operation because Ethiopia did not allow the Jews to leave, and Sudan did not allow the Jews to get in. So it was a covert operation. The people came in, said they were refugees.
They were smuggled.
Yeah.
And,
So she got there, but the problem, until she got to Sudan, the operation blew up. A reporter got news about what happened, and he published it about the story in the newspaper. And when the story was out, they had to close. Like, it was cooperation with the Mossad. The Mossad had this hotel and the Red Diving.
what's the name of the movie, by the way?
I don't like the movie, so I'm not going to promote it.
So we're not going to promote it here. But then you guys should read about it and not watch movies about it.
I will say that comment. I finished the story, and again, I'm going to say a comment about the movie. But the way they did it, the Ethiopian Jewry got to Sudan. They pretend to be refugees, and then they had our leaders work with contact with the Mossad. The Mossad had a hotel that they built up in Sudan. In the morning, it used to, like, as a covert operation where the innocent European will come and do like
it's a running hotel.
Yeah, like they had everything, like from the someone
like
the checking,
working and everything.
Someone is cleaning. Everyone in the hotel were Mossad operated.
Yep.
So in the morning, in the morning,
no, you should check it out. It's one
in
of
the
craziest
morning
stories this country has. In my
like
opinion.
the innocent European will come to dive in the Red Sea.
It was a dive-in result.
Yeah, and European, Germany, France will come and see, like, their instructor, the person who checked them in was Mossad operated. Someone who's cleaning their hotel was Mossad operated.
Yep.
Someone who teaching them the diving was Mossad operated.
Y'all can't see my face. I'm shook.
Yeah, everything was run by Mossad. So in the morning, that was a hotel, like a full-blown hotel working. And in the evening, when all the guests were sleeping in their bed, the chamber, the checking guy, the cleaning lady, everyone will go out and bring Ethiopian Jews from the refugee camps to the Red Sea. And then in the Red Sea, there was the IDF float, will move them in and bring them to Israel.
Yeah.
That is like how crazy the operation was. Crazy.
Wow.
I will already say that my feeling is I think
what happened.
What bothers you about the movie?
Yeah.
Because as someone who watched it, and maybe let me guess, it's because, and I was upset by it when I watched the movie. Everything was about the Mossad operation and about how they saved you guys, and you guys just appear just for a little bit. Literally, they just appear, like they smuggled them in, and the whole story is just about the operation of the hotel of the white men who came to save all the black Jews.
Mm-hmm.
So
am I correct in
yeah,
saying this?
100%. I will finish my story of my grandma, and then I will react on that. My grandma, she came because when she came to Sudan, she came as a refugee, like pretending to be a refugee, full knowing we have leaders in our community. They were in contact with the Mossad, and they will help to connect those dots in order to get to the like everything they need to get. And because the operation blew up in the media, the Mossad had to run away. They had to go out in the middle, like, and they stopped the operation. Imagine that for a second. Walking for almost 2 months, losing your son in the road, and then getting there, and then you've been told, hey, it stopped. You have to go back.
Wow.
She almost died. She lost a son. And then they tell her, we're sorry. It doesn't happen anymore. You have to go back.
So what happened to her?
She went back.
What?
Wow.
Yeah.
And she went back again. Wow.
And why it's important to understand, because in the second time they told her, hey, there's another operation.
She went again?
Yeah, she didn't. Like, I would be like, bitches, I've been here, done that. You fucking liars. I'm not going to do it. Her faith in her God, in her belief that this is this is where we're supposed to be.
This is
was
unreal.
so strong that the next time they told her, listen, there is another chance for you to go back to Jerusalem. She wasn't like, I lost a son. I almost died. I did everything and you send me back. She said, I'm packing my stuff up. I'm starting to go again. That is the craziness. That is like, when I ask myself, do I have the same belief as she had? Do I have the same resilience that she had? Or the willing of sacrificing in order to be here? I'm not sure. That's why I'm in love with her. I love my grandma. And I think she's the most amazing woman in the world.
Shout out to your grandma.
Yeah, shout out, Nana.
She is
yeah,
incredible.
so we came up in Operation Solomon.
So wait, you came back the next time your grandma came back also?
Yeah, in Operation Solomon in 1991, which was the easier operation. They didn't have to go to Sudan. They had an agreement with the Ethiopian government where the Ethiopian government got money and weapons. Some people will call it bribes, but I will call it agreement. In order, they were like, okay, you have 36 hours, take as many Jews as you want and leave us out, because those Jews are making
take them.
They're just getting me crazy.
They're problematic.
Yeah, they're problematic. So in 36 hours, so my family come from the Gondar area, which is majority of Jews, and they had to walk to Addis Ababa, which is the capital city, where is the operation started. For my family, so my grandma, my mom, my dad, my big brother was there, and the first night was okay.
They also walked.
Yeah, they walked for several nights, for 3-4 nights, more, 6 if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't that wasn't a month and a half.
Yes.
It was much easier. And I know if my mom would listen to that, the word easier will make me no, it's
unpopular.
Yeah, exactly.
In your face.
Yeah, she would not accept the word easy. But yeah, compared to what happened in Operation Moses, it was easier. It wasn't easy. But my mom was 9 months pregnant at that time. And so the first night come about, everything okay. Second night come about, and her water broke. And they're in the middle of nothing. Not drugs, not a bed, nothing.
And they were in the desert.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah. She had to deliver a baby girl to the world. And for those of you who are watching us on video, a beautiful baby girl in the world. and my family really looked at it as I come from a religious family.
Mm-hmm.
And they saw that as a sign from God, because it was a very tough situation. And my dad thought that I'm not going to make it. He thought, when he talks about it, he always says, either your mom or yourself are not going to be okay. That's what I saw. And the fact that we both survived that, for them, is a sign from God. It's saying, this girl deserves to be in Israel. This girl deserves to have a safe Jewish life. And that's why they named me Ashager, which means going forward from something bad that happens to you to something good. Like they truly, like my dad today he called me Messiah. Messiah in Amharic is Yekira Sheli, like my darling. Like the special like star of you, like something that they truly believe that I'm like the sign of God that like told them like you should continue the way. I'm here with you. That's how my family view me. And in a very tough situation, that gave them the strength to believe that God is with them and they should continue the road toward Israel.
We heard your entire story, which intrigued many, many emotions of sadness, hope, belonging. Even when you talked about Jerusalem, and I think we can talk about it later because it's something close to everyone's heart, especially here. But I wanted to ask you if you didn't have that, like this long time to define yourself, what were like, I don't know, the 3 top things that you would say?
Like, how do you define yourself in
I don't want to be very Gen Z and tell you, how do you identify?
No, I think, first of all, my Jewish identity is something very big in my identity because it's my legacy, it's my peoplehood more than everything. So I'm a part of the Jewish people. That is the first thing that like I'm not like putting first, second, third, but like
no, just what would you say?
What comes to mind?
Yeah, so being a part of the Jewish people, being Jewish is something that is very strong in my identity. Ethiopian Jewry, like specifically because that's where my culture come from. Meaning the music I hear, like the language that I spoke at home, the food that we ate is the culture of Ethiopian Jewry. And a Black woman that is like a little bit different from Ethiopian Jewry, that's just a Black woman. So Black, Jewish, like Zionist woman, all of that comes in part. And Zionism comes as a secondary to my Jewish identity. When I think about Zionism, I think about Judaism and the world.
Can you give us like a definition? What is Zionism to you?
Zionism for me is the belief the Jewish people deserve to have a homeland and self-determination in their historical homeland. And it's important to me to say it doesn't take anyone else right to self-determination. But Zionism for me is the self-determination of the Jewish people in their historical homeland. That's it. That is the belief that I hold. That is the belief that my parents hold. That is the belief that my grandparents hold. And if you take 10, 20, and 50 generation before me, that is what they believe in. And for me to say that I'm a proud Zionist come from, first of all, my own belief. And more than that is the legacy that our other generation before me have held on. And the gratefulness more than everything that I'm the first generation that in my lifetime were able to live the Zionist dream.
And when it comes to the other side of the coin, because the end, like you continued actually you defined it the same way as Adam, our previous guest, defined it as self-determination for the Jewish people in their historical homeland. In their historical homeland, from other people's perspective, aka the Palestinian perspective, is also their historical homeland. That's the narrative. How do you approach that dialogue? How does it make you feel? How does it make you feel that I, for example, myself, have experienced Zionism not in the proud way that you have experienced it, but more of a scared way, more of a threatening way, more of that idea wants to erase me, and it's exact opposite of what you just defined. How do you approach that kind of conversation?
So first of all, I will always say my idea of Zionism doesn't take away from anyone else right for self-determination. I truly believe the only place where both communities, both Palestinians and Jews, will be in, not just Israelis, because Israelis are diverse no matter where you're Arab Israeli, you define yourself Palestinian Israeli, Druze, Cherkessim, Jews, Israelis, and Palestinians. The only way for us to live together or side by side together is not an option.
To each of us to reach their self-determination.
Is when both of us have self-determination, both people have this determination. I like between borders and peace, between giving up land to have have self-determination, I will always choose self-determination and security for both sides. That is like, because I don't believe that my Zionism take away from Palestinian self-determination. My view of Zionism and how I define it doesn't take away from Palestinian self-determination and their right for self-determination.
And I think one thing beautiful that you, Amira, said last time, and I think it connects here, like, for Palestinians and in general in the anti-Israel world, let's just call it this way, that's the portray of Zionism as, in the negative connotation. I think there was something that Amira said last time is that, what she would hope is that the term is to be
kind of redefined
and to be reowned
not
by
redefined in words, but redefined in actions.
in action, as in to do the positive things in the name of Zionism, and then that way the term would take the positive notion, because when people are doing good things from the Jewish community, if they do them in the name of Zionism, then maybe that would change. Because the reason why we say this, because we see, for instance, certain governments, okay, also this one, they use the term Zionism and, their justification of a lot of horrific things that they do, for instance, in Israel and out. But that's, I think, to the outside world is, I need to see Zionism in a better light in order to accept it in that way.
So I disagree on that point, because in the end of the day, a lot of the time when people talk about Zionism, it's their own perspective of Zionism. It's like when people talk about anti-Semitism and they tell me like what is anti-Semitism is and what is Islamophobia is, when you are not Muslim or you're not Jewish. I'm sorry, you cannot define it if you're not a part of that community. I get to say what is offended for me as a Jew, as the same as you can define what is offended for you as a Muslim. That is the connection. And a lot of the time when you talk about anti-Zionism, it's other people's perspective of what Zionism is. And I disagree on that, because you don't get to tell me what Zionism is. You don't get to tell me what is the thing that I grew up on in the 30 years of my life, and my parents have grown up on the 40, 50, 60 of their life, and my ancestors have grown up on 100 years of their life. A lot of the time when people talk about Zionism, they talk about political Zionism, modern day Zionism, and how we define today and the modern world. And that is not Zionism. Zionism is a term that exists for centuries. When I talk about when talk about political Zionism, a lot of the time people will talk about Theodor Herzl, like the first Zionist Congress in Basel. When I talk about Zionism, I'm talking about Abba Mahari. Abba Mahari was Ethiopian Jewish monk that in 1862, 35 years before the Zionist Congress, the movement even decided like they want to start something. Ethiopian Jewry already assembled as a community and started walking toward Jerusalem. This is not depending on one movement or one government or one expression. This is a people that for centuries, no matter where we are, from Yemen to Morocco to countries in Europe, we always pray for and want to come back. We will always had a present here, no matter what occupation we had under us while we were here. This belief of our self-determination always existed, and only look at on Zionism on this like modern perspective is very, very narrow in my opinion. So it's very hard for me to define that, and it's very easy to look at that when you are anti something to look at the definition that bother you.
It's a very fascinating discussion.
It is a fascinating discussion. It's a little uncomfortable, I have to say, because I admire you and I love you so much. But at the same time, I don't say I would disagree with you. It's more of a yes and kind of thing. Like I know that I'll never I'm not Jewish. I'll never know what it is to walk a step in your shoes, whether that's you being Ethiopian Jew, an Ethiopian Jew, whether that's you being just Jewish alone. But at the same time, whenever I feel myself, whenever I catch myself kind of like trying to define what anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism is, even when I'm not a Jewish person, It's because I'm affected by it. It's not that I'm trying to define it. It's just that this is the only Jewish state. And it is all its actions is in the name of the Jewish people. And those actions have affected me personally. And it is my day-to-day life. So when I try to use my kind of freedom of speech whenever I can, whenever it is granted to me, one of the first accusations is that, oh, you're an anti-Semite. And then I find myself saying, no, that isn't anti-Semitism. That's a kind of, I feel like the only time that I would say, I kind of have a say in it. Not of what anti-Semitism is around the world. I can't even touch that or even try to understand it. The same way that you said, no other Muslim can understand what it is like to be, to face Islamophobia or anti-Muslim hate. But how do you think we can how do you think we can enlighten people or kind of differentiate between what is Zionism in the past, the pure Zionism of the right of the self-determination of the Jewish people, and what we're experiencing right now and today in the political Zionism?
Generally, I have a problem when people or government or political parties are trying to take responsibility on terms that exist long before them. Yeah. When we talk about like Black Lives Matter movement, okay?
You jumped into the question we wanted to ask.
We'll
okay, no, I'm saying like a lot of people, Black Lives Matter movement, their statements sometimes comes across as anti-Semitism or anti-Israel. So how can you like support Black lives? I'm like, with all due respect to that organization, they didn't start the expand for equal rights.
That Black lives do matter.
They are not like when a political organization take away and they say we are responsible for feminism, we are responsible for equal rights, and that when people talk about Zionism, say Likud party is responsible for Zionism. I'm like, no. One party cannot take ownership on a term that exists centuries or idea that exists centuries before that. And when people use their terminology to translate the term, you are giving them the power because that's what they want. That's why I cannot like connect to that. Because by using the term they want you to use, you are giving them the power. You say, this is what it is. And you say, no. You are not representative of that. You are a point. You are a small like dot in the history of what that is. And that's why I cannot take, like, I'm not going to let anyone to redefine this term for their own political agenda. That term exists before you, and guess what? You're going to exist long before you will be disappear in the pages of history. So I'm not going to give them that power over me. Mm-hmm. That is how I look at that.
Very powerful speech, and this is why we know that Ashager will become a future leader in this country.
No, I don't like politics.
I didn't say. I did not say. Political leader.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Leader, social leader.
No, she already is. She is
a leader, but she will be even a bigger person that, wherever you walk, anything you'll touch, it will turn gold in this country, I feel, honestly. But let's talk about the difficulties a little bit, because, and it's a term that you use because me and you share, we speak in lectures together. We talk about each of our different minorities. So I hear some of the, things that you say and the terminology. And one term that, sticks to me is being a visible minority. And my question is, as someone who's not from your community and also is not in the Jewish Israeli society, not in, I had friends and all of these things growing up. All my life, I had friends, even at a very young age, I had Jewish friends, but I never entered their own, intricates within the Jewish communities, the different imbalances and the different discrimination that happens. I would learn about it. I would learn, how they would portray Russian Jews and how would portray Moroccan Jews and how would portray Persian Jews. But to a lesser degree, how do they portray Ethiopian Jews? So my question, and I think the first time that I actually was exposed to the severity of the discrimination was with the
Salomon Taka.
Nari, Salomon Taka for sure.
I have tell me.
I have the list.
Salomon Taka for sure.
Tell me a year. I'm going to tell you the issue.
Salomon Taka for sure, and we'll talk about it. Yeah. But it's more about a year before that with the Barkan winery. And then I realized to the extent of the discrimination, and
Wait,
we'll talk about what the Barkan
later?
Winery
Okay.
in a second. But first, I would like to ask you, how are you treated? Are you treated, just put it bluntly, Jewish or as Black? And the reason why I'm asking, and this is where we would explain what happened with the Barkan Winery, is that what happened then, and it happened in 2018, was that they issued a statement and basically an action to prevent Ethiopian Jews who worked at the Barkan Winery from working physically with the wine. Why? Because those who in kosher wine, those who handle the physical wine have to be Jews. And in their
It's not regular
eye,
kosher. It's like there is a
An
degrees.
extra level of
Yeah,
kosher?
there is a degrees of kosher, and the issue is that they work with the Haredian
with
community.
the Haredis, exactly.
And they issue a new level of kosher. I'm not sure what they made up there, but I respect all things, blah blah blah.
But they said that
for
you guys are not
yeah,
Jewish
yeah,
to touch
exactly.
the wine, and then they're putting you as not Jewish.
Like they said, the
Yeah.
statement was
the statement was that
Ethiopian
they're not
Jews,
Jews, so they cannot touch the wine.
and it won't be kosher.
So how are you treated with with the backstory of this,
First
and
of
in
all,
general in your life
yeah.
growing up, and with the story also?
Yeah, so I will tell you a story. I had a 29 or 28 birthday. It was a surprise birthday. I didn't know about it. I hate celebrating birthdays. I don't like it. I stay at home. And my friends convinced me to go to another friend for a dinner. And then I came in and all my friends was there. I'm like, la, la, la. Surprise. Very, very fun. And I have very good friends of mine that was late, okay? And he came in, like we were sitting on the couch, and he came in, sat down, and he took everyone brings
Bring
something.
wine.
And then he put this wine on the table, the middle of the table, and you see all my friends, and that's where I'm proud. All my friends, they saw the wine, it was Barkan, and all my friends, 30 people was like, and I didn't need to say a word. Because all my close friends know that you don't buy Barkan. You don't buy Barkan.
I don't buy Barkan either after this. I have to tell you, it was a huge statement for me. I don't buy their wine.
Yeah, so that is the first thing that my close friends, my close society knows enough, more than knows enough. Everyone that's surrounding them at the same and their circles also don't buy Barkan. Whatever you think about that, whatever you think about the ultra-Orthodox community, whatever you think about their rules and their laws, it's theirs. It's your prerogative. I'm not going to impose my own opinion or my own perspective the same way that I don't want you to expose your own perspective on me. I truly believe in live and let live to the extremist. That's who I am as a person. And at the same time, the statement of the CEO at that time was it's not about society, it's about business. Business is business. That's what he said. And now to my followers, to my people, I say business is business. Yeah. So business is business. Our business not going to go to you. My friends, my family, because business is business. You don't put the social aspect of how you hurt a marginalized community in your action and portray this this idea of how Jews we're not. Business is business. You don't deserve my business. My friends are not going to buy from you. Their families are not going to buy from you. If that is the perspective, that's what you do.
I can tell you that one time we actually were at a friend's Shabbat dinner, and we had a similar story with Barkan wine. We didn't have any Ethiopian in the room, but everyone said, "Put this away. No one is drinking Barkan wine."
It's
it was
our
a statement.
responsibility.
It was great.
Yeah, exactly. It's our
sticking to another
responsibility.
community.
If you are not I'm not gonna push you. If you say something, you're gonna suffer the repercussions. Meaning, I'm not gonna I truly believe libertarian to the I truly believe you do what you do as a personal business, meaning not personal, how you say it,
Like a private business.
Yeah, private. Okay, as a private business, I truly believe you have your own decision. You are free to do what you want. But me as a consumer,
I can do whatever I
I
want.
can do whatever I want, and I can influence the other people. Because in the end of the day, business is business. As much as you said, is what you're gonna get.
So how were you personally, how was your personal life growing up as you say, visible minority here? Did you face discrimination? How was Where did you grow up? What did you face?
Yeah, so I think like the intersectionality that people don't understand about being Black and Jewish, especially Ethiopian Jewry, because our experience of anti-Semitism is very close to us. Meaning, for like Jews in the North Africa, in North America, for example, when they talk about like anti-Semitism, maybe they experience day to day and this and that, but like the vast majority of like the painful experience happened to the grandparents or great-grandparents. And for Ethiopian Jewry, those experience of discrimination or violent, like talking about my mother being like kicked to the ground, it's my mother, it's my grandma. That is something that is so close to us that, like I always say, like in the end of the day, my parents live in a majority Black country. They look like any other Black person, but their Black skin did not protect them from anti-Semitism. I live in a majority Jewish country, but my Jewish identity doesn't protect me from racism. So the fight between like what you choose, I don't have the privilege to choose, because I know in the end of the day, it's either my Jewishness or my Blackness that will be my downfall. So I don't agree to take a stand of what it is. Even if like I can pass as non-Jew, I would never do that. Because I know what my parents and my grandparents have given up in order to be like a proud Jew. So even if I'm the last like Jew in the room and it's going to be hard for me, I'm going to stand up and claim my Jewish identity. Because that is how I grew up. Because the generation before me have fought and died for me to identify as a proud Jewish woman. And being Black is something that it doesn't like, I cannot hide away from. Yeah. So I don't choose or define myself either, or I don't have the privilege.
But how are you treated here? Like where they live?
It's not choosing.
It's
the same thing.
They looking at
so
you.
Ethiopian Jewry community is very like fortunate in the fact that because our story is very like well known in the Israeli society in general, when there is a Black who looks like me, they will say, you're Ethiopian. Like everyone assume about your Jewish identity. It's the issue is on the racial aspect of that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really defined between generations, like the integration. Like if you talk to my grandma, she wouldn't be Israeli. Like she knows enough Hebrew to get by. All her friends are Ethiopians. She lives in a predominantly Ethiopian area. Like, I mean, a lot of Ethiopians surrounding her. That's what she wants. She wants to be around her community. Mm-hmm. And she will be like, for her, this idea of being here is more about the religious aspect. Meaning that is our homeland. This is where we term. This is where God, like Mamashkilu, religious aspect of that. That is where she connected to that.
And what's interesting, and it's something that I would want to ask, based on this, is the difference between how your grandmother saw the country as someone who came here versus you guys, and especially your younger siblings who are born here. So it's a completely different dynamic, and even looking at the country.
First of all, even in terms of integration, when people ask me like, are you integrated to Israel? What is the integration level? Blah, 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 blah. Like if you ask my grandma, she will say everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. And people come across and say like, how can she say everything is perfect? You have to understand, she had one dream her entire life. One dream. And that dream being able to be in Jerusalem. That's it. Being Jewish to Israel, that's it. And she fulfilled it. She was the first generation in her family to fulfill that. So that's it. She doesn't care about integration. She doesn't care about like getting into Israel society in that way.
And discrimination and challenges.
She doesn't.
I'm here. That's what's important.
For her, just being here, it's enough. That is the level of content she's looking for. Like even when I always say, like when we talk about like the story of how he came, when I ask her like what was the most surprising thing that when she walked down the airplane the first time she was here, what is the most like surprising thing she saw? She's saying white Jews.
Like she's never seen white Jews in her life.
Yeah. And her reaction was like, it's okay, I'm going to help them out. I'm going to help them integrate to our community. I'm going to make them a part of us. Like, because our idea of Judaism, Jews look like us. Because every Jew that she ever knew in her life looked like her. When she saw a bunch of white people, she's like, I'm going to help them out. I'm going to like, those minorities.
I'm gonna show them what Judaism is.
She's like, oh, those minorities, I'm going to help them. Oh, this
a few white men in the airport.
Like, she was very like colonialistic in that Arab opinion. She was like, I'm going to teach you about Judaism. Because that is her perspective. That's how she learned. Like, this is her, what Jewishness looked like for her.
And for you guys, growing, like being
so
born
the
here,
second generation, I was born in Ethiopia, but I came very early. And I would say people who came in that like very young age, they have like this double citizenship. Like when culturally, I'm very Ethiopian. I speak Amharic. I eat Ethiopian food. Everything like the way I was educated was very traditional, not Israeli in a way, very like traditional Ethiopian, African, very strict way, very modest way in the way I like respected the elderly. Yeah, very like there was like a lot of rules that
we're familiar.
So the way I acted at home and the way I acted outside with my Israeli friends, very different.
Wow. Okay.
They were like,
yeah, we are familiar.
Yeah.
No, I know.
Like my friend will talk back to their parents. I didn't know that is a possibility.
I didn't do that.
Like when I saw my friend talking back to his mom, I was like, like what happened to like this boy wants to die? Like he's asking for his death. I was sure I'm about to witness a murder. There's no way, like, because in our culture it doesn't exist.
So you talked a lot about the dynamics. What about being a woman? Because that's how you defined yourself, and I asked you also, what about being an Ethiopian Jewish woman, both in Israeli society and in Israeli
within the Ethiopian
yeah.
society?
So I think like between generations it changed, the same as integration. If I say like for our grandparents is one way, because that's like for them it's just being here, it's enough, and ours like my generation is like double like identities. And I didn't touch on that, but like the younger generation who were born here, they're very Israeli. They are Israeli. They speak Hebrew. They have the attitude. They don't have the same respect as we have to our culture, not in a like dismissive way. They're just not as connected to what we are. They are Israeli to everything. And it's women part, it's very challenging. I will say that I'm very, very blessed. I'm privileged in the way that my father, knowingly or not knowingly, is a feminist. Like my father was like in a community that is very tradition, when women is like, women need to take care of the house and cleaning and have like minimum like jobs, when you just like majority of your ideas, like your purpose in life is getting married, have children, and taking care of the house. That is like, that is success in our community for a lot of women. My dad wasn't like that. My dad made sure that he cleaned up, he took care of the house, he cooked in order for me to go and study ballet. And do like modern dance and do extracurricular activities. And he's the one to encourage me to go and study and don't get married before you finish your degree. He was very like those things for him, and which is very different from the experience of a lot of other women in my community. Like for a lot of other like mothers in our community, when they look at me like, oh, your daughter didn't get married. You saw she's walking around with pants. Like that is and the neighborhood, that is like how they talk about me. And my dad could not give a fuck. Like, sorry, I'm not sure if I can.
It's fine.
I do my all the time.
No, but he could not care, because he's, in the end of the day, I have this. He said like, I have this independent like girl, and I'm not going to trim her wings.
And
I'm going to help.
My gem, and she's my star.
Yeah, and he will let me, and he will let other people talk about, like, he's letting them to do whatever they want. And I don't care about what other people in the community say about me. I care about my girls and their happiness. So he's the one, when my mom was talking about, you should get married and have children, my dad would say, no, don't do that. Finish your studies, have your degree, have your job. He will be the one to push me in a way that even today, when I'm like way over the like the edge in our community that we're supposed to get married, he will always say, do what's right for you. I trust you. You're a smart girl.
Shout out to Ashager's dad.
Yeah.
On that note. Okay, now with a sharp turn.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a little bit about, the dynamic between our separate communities, because I think it's really fascinating to discuss, some of these dynamics that exist. So I think I would ask you, Amira, this time, When was the first time you were introduced to Ethiopian Jews? The first time you met an Ethiopian Jew? The first time you heard of the term? What does that give you as like, the first thought that comes to your mind, I guess?
Actually, the first Ethiopian Jewish woman that I did meet was when I was volunteering in a hospital, and she not only I was introduced to like it's completely different from what you present Ethiopian Jewry to be, because she showed me kind of what your parents are like the religious girl wearing the skirts. I was like. Didn't know what the language that she was saying. It was also extremely difficult to pronounce her name. I'm not even going to attempt right now. But and I would hear her talk like Amari to her parents, and I never like and she would tell me like, oh, my parents are going to Ethiopia, and she the thing about her, and which I also like see in you, is that I was still learning. I was 18. I was about 22 years old, and I was still learning Hebrew. I didn't know a word of Hebrew, and I couldn't understand a word she was saying. From how extremely fast Ethiopian Jews, I don't know if you pay attention because you like are fluent, but they're extremely fast in talking Hebrew, so fast, and they use also slang that I also didn't understand.
I had that in the US.
Yeah,
Black Americans were like, yeah, my first time ever in the US, and they speak so fast and very, very slang. I'm like, excuse me? I remember
Pardon?
the first time I ever spoke with a Black person in the US, I asked him to repeat the sentence 5 times. I was like, please speak slowly, because it's the first time I'm in the US. I don't know how to like, my ear is not used to catching on that quickly.
Actually, I think like generally Israelis speak very, very fast Hebrew.
and the younger generation also speaks
then,
very fast, like
and
teens.
they swallow the words and they mash stuff up, and I'm like, what? Yeah.
No, but it was fascinating what she showed me, and it wasn't even like part like a speck of it. It was still again a big ocean that I'm still trying to be introduced to. What it is to be a Jewish person, what it is to be like, how diverse it is, how diverse. Like I remember the shock that I got when I got introduced to the idea of Arab Jews, or like Jews from the Middle East. But generally, where I met my first Jewish person was like in Jerusalem, people in the army, like I said in episode 2, like all occupation, like that's what I saw. And I remember the first Ethiopian, well, I didn't know that it was an Ethiopian Jewish person, but the first visibly Black Jewish person that I saw was at a checkpoint. And it did like turn a few wires in my head, and I was like, what? Like, what happened, because the idea that we have is that, or the narrative that we get is that they just came from all around the world, and they came and they settled here, and mostly white European Jews after the Holocaust. And then when I saw that, like I had a few questions, but it was never backed up at school by history in the family. And we also, like, I don't know a lot of Black people in general, to be honest. Like in Jerusalem, we had one Muslim Black girl in our school. That was it. And she also held her culture and where she came from very, very, very true to herself, and her like pictures of her grandparents, pictures like extremely, extremely dear to her. But generally, I felt kind of a connection to Black people just as a minority in the States. I felt like, oh, they're like, I felt the struggles, like not that it was the same, but whenever I saw, like when I saw George Floyd and the situation and everything, how it escalated and everything that happened, I felt heat in my body. Like I felt like something, like if I were there, I would hit the streets also. And the first time I met an Ethiopian Jewish person is Ashager, to be honest. Like when you invited me a few months
one of
ago,
our speaking
prior
engagements.
to your speaking engagements, and I've seen your videos before I met you.
She's a star. Follow her on Instagram
at Black Jewish Magic.
Yeah.
And I heard your story, not not only did I laugh my ass off because you're hilarious and an amazing just aura to be around, but also it was like fascinating to hear that perspective, because at that point I was just getting introduced to Mizrahi Jews. I was just getting introduced to Middle Eastern Jews, and I was like, oh, so they didn't steal like the shakshuka, they didn't steal our music. It's like we share it. It's like where it comes from. And then I got introduced, and it's like, wow, this is such an ocean of diversity that we have in this tiny place. But I wouldn't say like I have kind of, I don't know anyone else, to be honest. I don't know anyone else. That's my answer. We interrupt this episode to express our heartfelt gratitude to our supporters and our Patreon members. Without you, we wouldn't be where we are today. So this is a reminder that if you join our Patreon community, you will have access to exclusive content, and you will be the first to know when we have something going on in your city. So that is your reminder to join the Patreon, and you can do it with the link in our description. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate it a lot.
And Ashager, when was the first time you've ever met a Palestinian in your life?
So I don't remember what age, like what grade was it. I think I was 12, 13 or 14, one of those ages. I went to a delegation. It's called Rotary. It's a Rotary Club when they choose one in every city to go to a delegation. We went to Germany. There was 13 like young people from different countries. Every person was in a different country. And one of the people who were, I was like from Israel, and one of the girls that with me was a Palestinian from the West Bank. So that is like the first time I like actively had a conversation with a Palestinian, but I was very, very young. And it's very interesting, like thinking about it, like now as an adult, because we both came from a very, very different perspectives. We both came like in a very, like, I will say like this like 2 rooms. Each one has their own reality and their own perspective. Yeah. And then like when we met, we had the opportunity to talk about her experience and my experience, and what Judaism is for her and what like Islam is for me. And she was like, she was observant, but like her family is secular. Like there was so many levels of like dismantle a lot of stereotype for both of us, like what she thought and what I thought. And that's like comes to the fact that I always believe that human to human like interaction is the most important thing that we can do, like especially in a young age when we build up our understanding of what the world is. So I was very fortunate to do that, because in the end of the day, it's the fact that it wasn't even in Israel, it was outside of Israel, outside of the pressure of this society, and in a very like multicultural, because everyone were like in different countries around the world, and every part of our like the delegation got time to introduce themselves, because it was about young people introducing their culture. So that gave me a lot of perspective. And generally, as I said, I was a very curious person. Like I never take things that are being told to me for sure. I always investigate stuff. I always learn about stuff. That was my opportunity to learn more and like reach out more. Yeah, so it was very, very interesting.
So you researched what Palestinian is?
Yeah, because in the end of the day, like in Israeli education system, you learn about Palestinian identity, but it comes across as like we always come in an expense of like a political like sentiment. There was not about culture, about experience, more about as a political rival. That's what you learn, like a majority. And so from that you learn more about like what is their experience, because we have our experience of how this country was built up. We have our own experience of what this country means to us. But in the end of the day, you have another people who have a very different narrative to what this country means to them. And like the difference between Yom Ha'atzmaut, Independence Day, and Nakba tells you very different stories about the same events. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to agree on Yom Ha'atzmaut or the Nakba, but it's important to learn the narrative for both sides.
And the pain, the trauma.
For each side, and understanding. As I said, like I truly believe that just understanding each other, you don't have to agree. don't worry about it. Just understanding each other pain or trauma or experience, a proud or like historical background can take you a long way in acknowledging each other.
Yeah, I agree. And I always say, understanding is the first step to acceptance. Once you are able to understand where somebody comes from, you'll be able to accept them. You'll start to, accept their story, accept
I would
their
say
narrative.
you would start to tolerate, and then you would get to acceptance.
And then you get to an acceptance. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a process, but without understanding the idea, where they come from, their history, their story, you won't be able to reach that point of empathy. Like, we won't reach empathy before we reach an understanding. So let's do that first step and push onwards. For me, I'm trying to remember when was the first time I met an Ethiopian Jew. I think it was like right after high school, when I was working, very small shifts, at, I actually worked in McDonald's for like a few, like almost a year before college. I had a
Very
gap
surprising.
Humble beginnings.
Yeah. I was a hard worker at that time. Right before I went to university and I went to Egypt and all these things. And, I had an Ethiopian worker with me. And then you understand that, okay. I would see them. It was a visible thing. Like you say, I was in an area in Nazareth where we had Nazareth Elite that has a relatively large Ethiopian community, actually, especially in the area of the city that is right next to mine.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a community that I always saw, but I never knew who they are exactly. And only with documentaries that, came out in the late 2000s that started to bring the story of the Ethiopian Jews and of the operations to bring the Jewish people here. So I saw those before the movie. That's why I was like, in the movie, where are all the Ethiopians? Why are they not in the movie? But I felt blessed that I was able to like start to understand it. But then I got another twist when I met other people who look black. And then I was like, are you Ethiopian? They were like, no, I'm Eritrean. I'm like, okay, hold on a second. There are other communities here that are also black, but they're actually not Ethiopian. And in their case, they're not even Jews. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So then you're like, okay, there are different minorities because they're political refugees from Eritrea that came to Israel and sought refuge. So they also live here. And that was also for me another twist to like, oh, that's why you guys have more Arabic than what I would hear from Ethiopian Jews. But I want to share this with you. The toughest moment I have with the Ethiopian community. It was when the murder of Solomon Teka happened by the officer. I think I would let you say what happened then, and I'll tell you what I experienced with that as well.
So Solomon Teka is a young boy, 18 years old, who was shot by off-duty police officer next to his house. There is different ideas of the story. In a couple of months, we were supposed to get the officer was charged, and in a couple of months, we are supposed to get like the resolution of the trial. As much as like people like to protest and go to the street, a lot of people won't stick and continue following the story. So yeah, it's been a couple of years, but the trial is still going on. The family is still speaking up, and it's important to.
So you're saying the trial, like
wrapping up? I think like
it's still wrapping up, but it's important to say that it happened in 2019. So
yeah, but we had
5 years.
Yeah, we had COVID, if I remember right. There is like a lot of like
things that happened
in between that like prevented. I definitely believe that if it didn't get this public attention that it wouldn't get to the trial. But like that's shows you that like protesting and speaking up is important. There is important. That is my personal belief. There's a lot of stories like how the officer is describing the story, how the people that were there describing the story. I'm not going to like talk about that. In the end of the day, I think it was a point where a lot of Ethiopians, Jews who live here, felt like not connected, because like in the end of the day, this scenario, no matter how you go about it, if he threw the rock, if he was just walking by, if he cursed on him or we didn't curse on him, no matter what you believe the story to be,
you can't kill the person.
It should not in any way or form should lead a death. that's it. You can agree on that. You can argue about what did he do in that scenario. In the end of the day, we should all agree that this boy should not been killed. This boy should not have been taking his life, even if he was talking back, even if he threw rocks. It doesn't matter. He should have been walked away alive in that scenario. And that's like a lot of our people in our community felt like there was mistreating of the police officer and lack of professionalism that comes from the fact that when he talks to Ethiopian jury, there is this this very easy way when it comes the way you treat them, meaning when we talk about police violence, and it really connected a lot of things that I say usually is that one of the issues when we talk about over policing in minority communities or lack of charge, when we talk about officers that misuse their force, it comes with minority communities. And a lot of people will say, because of the color of this or the color of that. I think more than the color, in the end of the day, it's about repercussions. When the officers know that the community that you're targeting are not able to stand up for themselves, they don't have the funds in order to have a lawyer, in order to go to trial, they feel like they are able to do whatever they want. And it comes across with the ultra-Orthodox community. It comes across in the Arab-Israeli communities. If you look at the numbers, that is the ultra-Orthodox Ethiopian Jews and Arab-Israelis are the communities that has the most
infrastructure.
Clashes with police officers, when the police officer will use excessive force in order to detain them, and the charges they will get will be higher. And you have to ask yourself why Arab Israelis, ultra-Orthodox, and Ethiopian Jewry are the one to have the most clashes with the police. And because of the communities that have less representation, have less funds a lot of the time, and they're are less knowledgeable about their rights and their ability to what they do in that scenario. And for myself, when people think about for me, it was a very, very, very hard what happened was very hard for me. I knew about it in the morning. My aunt called up. We went to his funeral. It's someone that I never met before. We drove 2.5 hours to go to a funeral, watch his parents grieve over his body, which is hands down one of the hardest things that I had to watch, especially when you feel like you are so connected to this country.
It could have been you. Yeah. It could have been someone from your family.
You say I love this country, even if sometimes this country doesn't love me back. That is the experience that I feel like I love this place, but sometimes this place doesn't love me. And how can I deal with that? And my way to deal with that is to make sure this place is a better place. And I truly believe as minorities in general, we need to talk to each other, especially when it comes to police violence. I think ultra-Orthodox Arab Israelis and Ethiopian Jewry are dealing with the same issues. It's the same issues, black and white, the same issues in the way the police is acting toward us. But we will never protest on the same issues. We will never have a coalition and say, okay, this boy was mistreating because he's Arab, and because of that, we would.
All of us are standing.
Yeah, the Ethiopians won't show up for Arab Israelis and Arab Israelis
among minorities. Yeah.
So that is the way you get away from that. If you keep each minority to their own and believe this is your issue.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah, and there is your issue, but it's not my issue. So I'm not going to show up for you, and I'm not going to show up for you, but I'm going to show up for myself. So how can I make a change? My friends think my hobby is protesting, because I went to the national law protest, and I went to the Pundakaut, how you say for gay for LGBTQ
for LGBT to have
adoption rights, and I went to
to have to get pregnant and to get all these things.
So in every social issue that I believe in, I will show up. It doesn't matter the identity of who is the community. You have to show up. If I believe that you have the right, your rights were affected, why wouldn't I show up? If just because you don't look like me, just because we don't share the same political view, it doesn't matter. If and we need to change our perspective on that. Because that is the only way to create actual change, because the change comes with number. As long as we continue to keep on the small numbers and only care when our specific rights are being like hurt and not other people, we're not going to be able to make any change.
But what did you want to say?
And
something?
I will tell you, so exactly on that note, that was my personal experience back in 2019. And you understand, the severity of it, especially it happening after Floyd, it already exploded in the US beforehand, and then it's happening here. And there were mass protests, which were tough. Like some of them were very tough, including violent ones as well. And as a citizen, I'm like, I understand why they're protesting, even though it looks, horrific and, blocking streets and all these things, even though, we do it all the time.
Yeah.
And now it became such a normal thing. But the one, and I very much felt connected to that pain. And I really felt, it's in the same, like you're saying, it could have been an Arab kid, it's the same kind of treatment. And then I remember, during the first week, that week when there were big protests right after it happened, when I saw one graffiti with Ethiopian Jews writing, "Anachnu lo Arabim," we're not Arabs, as a message to the police, what you're doing is something that you do to Arabs, not to other Jews. No, it was "Anachnu Yehudim, anachnu lo Arabim."
We are
Jews,
we are
not Arabs. Meaning what you did to Solomon Teka is not something you're supposed to do to Jews. If you do it to Arabs, it's a different thing. But you can't do it to us because you're Jews. And then it was hard for me to continue to feel that this also represents me, that this is also something that I want to, speak about.
As a fellow minority.
As a fellow minority, and to back up. It was something I very much struggled with.
Yeah, but I think in the end of the day, that's what they want. The extreme voices in every minority community, that feeling, that's what they want. They want you to not feel connected. They want every minority to stay in their own lane and in our pain. It doesn't matter if my pain and your pain is from the same reason, have the same source. And if we come together, we're able to solve it quicker and better for those communities. And I'm not denying the fact that there is voices like that. 100% in every community there is going to be extremists. I think for
that was definitely
of course 100%. And of course if it was different, I would feel the same way. It's very legitimate experience, painful experience to have. For me, you cannot let those voices to define what is your connection. Because if something is wrong, something is wrong. Mm-hmm. Something is wrong. I'm going to stand up for it, even if you don't if you don't accept me. I talk there was this time where they talk about Zionism and feminism, and you cannot be Zionist and feminist. I'm okay, bitch. So I'm here. I'm not going to define myself as feminist because you say this interact with my Zionism. I know what Zionism means. I know what feminism is. You can like me or dislike me. My value system stay the same. I'm going to continue standing up for women. It doesn't matter if you agree with me or not. And I think it's the same way in everything that we can a lot of the time we are looking for other people confirmation of our values, validation of our you agree with me. I'm no, my values will always stay the same. It doesn't matter. You like me, great. You don't like me, even better. I don't need to talk to you.
You're describing unapologetic. You're describing exactly why we're here.
Yeah.
You're being unapologetic.
No, I'm just saying, at the end of the day, it's we should stop asking for permission. We should understand who we are as a people, what our value system, what we are willing to stand up for. And once we are willing to stand up for it, nothing should move us from that. It doesn't matter what other people tell us.
And on that note, we have, aside from all the, obviously we have, 136 people, hostages at the moment.
Yeah.
One of them is a hostage from all the way in 2014. Actually a member of the Ethiopian community.
Amira Mengistu.
Yep. And you actually spoken about it in the past. And what do you feel about that? And, do you think that the rest of the Israeli society did that at that time to like, this is the suffering of one person from one community, but we all need to stand for it? Because I can tell you, I only heard about it later on in like, a couple of years later, also when it came up with the Bedouin that went in, and then I was like, oh, and then they talked about both stories. And then I was exposed to also that story. So I'm curious, what do you think about?
Obviously, not to compare, not to
compare
compare
but like I'm
sufferings,
saying,
not
like,
to compare anything.
no, but I'm saying like, I wasn't even aware that happened until something from someone who's more closer to my community, it happened to it, and then I got to learn that it happened to someone else. And the question is like, do you think the rest of the Israeli society did they do enough? Did the Israeli society do enough forever?
I think Avera Mengistu is like one of the saddest stories you can hear about, because it's like the colliding a lot of different like misfortunes in some ways that like led it to that situation. What do I mean? In the end of the day, Avera Mengistu comes from Ethiopian community and newcomers like Olim Chadashim. His parents are divorced. They don't speak Hebrew. They are low-income family. A lot of children. His brother served in the IDF, was wounded, and then later on committed suicide.
Wow.
And Avera, who already had mental issues after the death of his brother, those issues came to an extreme point. So we have a Black man, mentally ill, a low-income family, live in like the south of Israel, all those things that from the get-go doesn't assure you a better future, from the get-go put you in that leg down from anyone in Israeli society. And then from his grief, from his pain, he decided he's going to go to Gaza to find whatever. No one actually knows what's going on in his head. People is mental issue. And then you have this video of him like climbing the fence and getting willingly to Gaza, getting into Gaza. And people from outside, people who don't understand what is having a mentally ill family member, people who don't understand what is the pain of seeing someone who cannot control their own action, that doesn't have a logical effect. We say, hey, he did that.
He went alone. What do you want?
Why is our responsibility as a country to take care of someone that in his own free will got into Gaza? When people, there is this, what happened to him is like the storm of so many things. The lack of understanding of mental issues in our society, and the stereotype, the stigma that exists toward those people and what they can or cannot do. The fact that there is low income, meaning he's not Gilad Shalit parents who has money and have lawyers and have a connection to publicity and can talk in English and Hebrew and create this campaign. They don't have that finance, and they don't have the language to do that. So they are depending on other people to tell their own son's story. So you have so many things that comes against him. And the fact that he's Ethiopian, that a lot of people, you care about people who looks like you, who share the same stories of you, who have the same experiences as you. So this man, all of that came in effect. So the people who in our community knows and speak up, the people who are have social awareness and talk about this issue will speak up. The majority of Israel doesn't know. The majority of Israel doesn't care even. For them, is this a man that chose to get to a fence and got into Gaza?
It's heartbreaking, and especially when we had similar cases in. There was a woman, I remember in 2019. 18, 19, she crossed to Syria.
Yeah.
And she did it multiple times.
Yeah.
And each time the country brought her back.
Yeah, but it's not Hamas.
Well, they had ISIS there, and they had
but it's not ISIS. ISIS didn't have it.
Yeah, no, they didn't have her, but they.
But Hamas is holding Avera Mengistu.
It's just like
Hamas is not like, hey, he's mentally ill. Let's care about him.
She's gonna give him back to you guys.
Yeah.
So maybe as a kind of an end, we talk a lot in our episodes about empathy, about either how crucial it is and how important it is, or the lack thereof of the empathy in the world, let's say. The feeling of, in order to give empathy, I need to give it 100% to one specific people and give the exact opposite to the, like you said, the rival of these people. What are you? We talked a little bit about it behind camera, but I would love to have your note on empathy, the lack of empathy now that we're seeing both in Israeli society and Palestinian society and in the international community as well.
I think October 7 really changed everything.
Yeah.
For Israelis, for Jewish community as a whole, from the reaction of the world to what happened to us, to denying of what happened to us, the minimization of what happens to us. And a lot of the time when you feel like you are not being heard, or not, your pain is not valued, or not being presented, or excused away, your gut reaction will be, okay, that's like, I'm going to bear down. I'm going to making sure that is the walls that I'm by myself, and I'm going to protect myself.
Before we conclude this last part, we find that it's very necessary to have a disclaimer. The next part of this podcast that you're going to listen or watch is going to contain disturbing and maybe triggering graphic description. So I encourage you to prepare yourself emotionally beforehand. It's going to be description of things that happened on October the 7th. So if you feel like this discussion might be harmful or traumatizing to yourself, I encourage you to make that personal decision and not listen to the rest of this video. If not, kindly prepare, embrace yourself emotionally.
And the tragedy of what happened on October 7, it's not only the loss of life, which is tragic, and it's not only Jewish loss of life. There's Arab Israeli, there are Druze, there's so many,
there was no mercy shown.
Doesn't matter, like you had a pregnant woman with hijab,
yeah,
with her husband sitting next to her, who are clearly religious Muslim women who were shot and killed. There was not a differentiation between it was Israeli. It was killing the idea of Israel. It was killing who we are as a people. And I think what people don't understand, the trauma behind that is not only the trauma of the death of the people, is the way it was carried out, and the fact that we had a live stream to everything that was going on. Because everyone that woke up at October 7 got to see in their own eyes the brutality, the inhumanity, the cruelty. Because there's one thing about people are getting killed than seeing it on live stream on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing about knowing people get kidnapped and seeing a young woman, 18, 19 years old, getting dragged out of the back of a truck, all bleeding, while the people surrounding are cheering. There is one thing about knowing that a woman was in a party, having fun, and then seeing her dead body, messed up leg, half naked, and then seeing people spit on her and hit her when she's dead. And that is where empathy for a lot of Israelis disappear. Because it's not only about the 3,000 Nukhba, Hamas terrorists got to our borders, it's seeing how the reaction of regular Gazans was. Because we had this discussion later, because I say, in the end of the day, there is no reality in this world. There's no reality in this world when I will see young Palestinian in the back of a truck, and my reaction would not be, go the fuck out, leave her alone, what are you, crazy? That there is no reality in this world that my reaction wouldn't be, I'm going to protect this young woman. There's no reality. There is no reality where I spit on her. There's no reality that I don't think about her mother. And seeing that from regular people, that is something that I think a lot of Israelis took back from. Like for me, as someone who has this idea of what Palestinians and Hamas and how you cannot differentiate between those people, and you have to understand this and that, seeing the gladness, seeing the happiness, seeing the cheering, seeing the, even when the release of the hostages, like even the release of the hostages, when they throw rocks on the of the trucks that release those things is so hard. You understand that as a human being, there's a people who, there's over like 2 million people. You cannot like take a judgment of the action of few to the action of everyone. You understand that. But seeing that, like how they've been treated and what have they been gone through, is so hard to manage. And it comes to the same, to the place where that is the weapon that people are against peace wanted. That's what they wanted. That is the best thing that they can, like, that is the best weapon they can ask for in the end of the day. Because if you view the other side as less of, like, as people who you cannot discuss with, the people who only want your death, only want your demise, there is no way to do peace with them. There is no way. So October 7th took us back in a way that I think will take forever, not forever, a long years to build it up. Because no peace, no existence can be without trust. And there is the lack of trust. And when you see the action of Israel following that, and you see the death on the other side, the young children, you see the women, you see the uninvolved people who get hurt, who killed in those attacks. And you accept this empathy or sympathy from the Israeli public. The reaction a lot of the time is, you cheer for our death. You cheered when our women were raped. You cheered when they were walking around the street bleeding. And then you ask for our empathy? And that is such a terrible position to be in. That is such a terrible position to start anything with. And we have to remind ourselves that this is where they want us to be. They want the lack of trust. I mean, the people who are against peace, who are against two-state solution, who are against people who are extreme in their opinions, that truly want us to continue fighting for each other to the end of time,
to the bitter end, or to either one stays alone here.
Yeah, they want that. That is the best. Like the lack of trust that exists right now, the lack of empathy that exists right now, the lack of like seeing each other that exists right now. That is the exactly thing that will continue this war forever, this fight forever. And our responsibility, and I will tell you honestly, I'm working on it with myself a lot. I'm working because there is a part of my innocence, of my belief, that was shattered on October 7th. That was shattered on October 7th. That, like, I saw the unedited video.
The unedited?
Video of the IDF. For those of you who don't know, it's 47 minutes, where it's videos, footage that is not open to the public.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I hate to talk about it.
You don't have to talk about it.
The images, there is no humanity. It's not only there is no humanity, there is happiness. There's one thing about killing someone, killing a family, and there is another thing about shooting an entire family, 2 parents, 3 children, just blood everywhere, and just being happy. They were happy. They were taking selfies and like next to bodies and next to families, burning them out and being like, if there's not a lot of videos because a lot of them is CCTV or body cameras of the terrorists at that time. So you have like a little bit of sound from their own phone, video phones. And the sound you hear the most is them laughing. That is the soundtrack of this 47 minutes. The laughing, the happiness, the content of him saying to his friend, take a photo of me, take video of me. And I'm like, in what world? In what reality do you kill a little boy and then you want to take a selfie with his, like, and what is the level of hatred that exists in you that not to see me as human, that you think it's okay? So October 7th took a lot of my innocence, a lot of my hope for the future. And our responsibility, I believe, is to understand that the only way that for us to continue, the only way to make sure that our children, our grandchildren have a better history than us, is that we cannot lose our empathy to each other. We cannot let the worst side of our conflict, the extreme side in our reality, in each side, to define who we are as people. Because when you think about Gazan people and you see the beginning of protest, the beginning of speaking up about Hamas, the beginning of like trying to change the reality they are living in, that is a sign for something better for the future. And I hold on to that. Because in the end of the day, I don't want my children to go out to the army and risk their life in a war that my brothers are right now risking their life for. I don't want the same future, the same cycle of violence to continue.
As a human being to another human being, when I hear that, I just want to say that I'm sorry. Not because I feel responsibility. It's just, no, it's for us. I'm so sorry
As
for
humans,
us that we need to go.
that we need to
go
be in that
through
place.
this. Like it really shatters my soul to hear what you just said, and it shatters me even more that it's true. But I just thank you for not losing hope, or actually for creating hope.
Yeah, and I'll
where there is no hope.
I would say that I'm not there yet. It's important for me to say it's not that I'm good. I'm saying what happened have changed my perspective. And I'm working very, very hard for it not to change who I am as a person. That is where I am. I'm not saying that I'm there. I'm saying that I'm working very, very hard to let the images, the voices, the stories, the experience, to let me drift away to what I believe is not helpful.
And thank you for coming here, like with everything that you just said. Thank you so much for coming here, for having the bravery to say it. And I have no words. I don't.
Yeah, it's just you're talking about that feeling of how can I trust that there are good people on the other side, and that's the one feeling I think that both sides feel that they share, kind of like, okay, how can I trust Israelis? Look what they do to us. And how can I trust Palestinians? Look how they're doing to us, and what do they do when they attack us? And both sides are eliminating empathy to the other. And as you rightly said, the only way to move forward is that we show empathy to each other, because that will prevent this extremism from being the only voice out there. And as you said before also, that's what the extremists would want, is that their voice is the only voice. And I really, and I can tell you, for me, my hope and my belief did not waver or shrink by a 0.001%. But the urgency that I feel now has not only tripled, but like multiplied by 100. It's just the feeling that, okay, look at where the lack of empathy got us.
Yeah.
And it's now or never. We have to speak about empathy now, because otherwise we will be in the place that you mentioned of, it will take us years to rebuild. And I don't want it to take us years. I want it to start already now. And
I think it was going to take years no matter what.
No matter what.
I don't see any reality. There is going to be any trust.
But I want to start
for the
now.
coming years.
For me, I didn't go through what you were describing.
No, I 100%. It's just
I saw the images. I saw the and I described it before. I won't deny that when I saw the wall, the fence ripped and people coming out, I won't deny that is something that I don't want. Like, I do want the freedom of the Palestinian people. But at the same time, when I saw only part of what you saw, the unedited videos, only part of what I saw, I also went to an extreme. As a Palestinian, I went to extreme of these. How can we as human beings get to that point that we can do what she just described? How? And I did also, as a Palestinian, again, went to extreme of, like, all out, like, these people shouldn't exist, Hamas. And we should go through every means. But then, in the same day, this is all within the same hour, I went to, no, but the innocent people in Gaza, they're going to face the consequences. And then I saw the extremism rising here inside, and I saw the extremism, like, of empathy in the international community. And then I was like, okay, it's empathy, it's understanding, it's listening, no matter how tough it is. And I think to some degree or another, we're all working on it. We put on happy faces here, but like smiling faces, and we joke sometimes, but it's extremely dark. It's extremely not happy. Like, it's extremely painful. And for you to be on the forefront, on the front lines of advocacy, as a face, as someone who speaks to people, to kind of just say that we deserve to live, is something that, like, is the obvious.
Yeah, we all share.
And we thank you so much, not just for joining us here, but thank you so much for, exactly, for the house that you have, the center that you have, to show the beauty of Ethiopian Jewry, and all the advocacy that you do. And I'm going to give you a hug in a second, but I admire you so very much.
The biggest hug she'll ever get, honestly. Like, truly, we thank you again for being here. And
thank you for having me.
Don't think that, like, I'm just always optimistic like that. I have every day, I'm raising myself up. Just remember that this is the only way forward. And it's such a tough process every day, again and again. And it's something all three of us are going through, and everybody else, I think, who's working on keeping the empathy alive. It's tough, but we need to do it, because that's the only way forward. And I guess with that in mind, we'll remind our listeners one more time that at the end of the day, we all deserve better.
And through empathy, we will get to it.
Bezrat Hashem.
Bezrat Hashem, and inshallah.